Picture this. The year is 1250 BC. Thebes is the most powerful city on Earth, capital of the new kingdom. Home to maybe 100,000 people, Pharaoh Ramesses II rules an empire stretching from modern-day Syria to Sudan. The temples of Karnak and Luxor dominate the skyline. The Valley of the Kings holds the tombs of pharaohs. But what was it actually like to spend a single day here? Not as a pharaoh or a high priest, but as an ordinary person navigating one of the ancient world's greatest civilizations.
Using AI trained on archaeological evidence and historical records, we've reconstructed what 24 hours in ancient Egypt actually looked like. No, just the monuments. No, just the gold and the glory. We're talking about the real Egypt. The Nile flooding your fields, the bread that everyone eats 3 times a day, the gods who control whether you live or die from dawn to midnight. This is what life was actually like in ancient Egypt. Let's step back 3,300 years. The sun breaks over the eastern hills, turning the Nile from black to gold. You're standing on the riverbank in a small village south of Thebes. The Nile is everything. It's your water source, your highway, your calendar, your god. Right now, it's the season of Shemu, low water, harvest time. The fields are dry, the crops are ready, and in a few months, the inundation will come again. Fishermen are already out on the water in small papyrus skiffs, reed boats that barely stay afloat but have worked for thousands of years. They're catching tilapia and Nile perch, fish that will be sold in the market by midday or salted and dried for later. Women are mourning. Sacred temple rituals at Karnak, walking down to the river with clay jars balanced on their heads. No running water, no taps. Every drop has to be carried. The Nile is muddy, but it's what you drink, what you cook with, what keeps you alive. You can see the farmers heading to their fields. Wheat and barley almost ready to harvest. Flax for making linen, onions, garlic, lettuce. Everything grows because of the Nile. When the flood comes in Akit season, it deposits rich black silt across the fields. That's why Egypt even exists. Miss the flood and you starve. Too much flood and your village drowns. The priests track it obsessively with neometers, stone columns that measure the water level. They compare it to previous years. They predict the harvest. They tell the pharaoh whether Egypt will eat or starve, but right now the water is low and the harvest is coming. Morning. By the time the sun is fully up, you're heading into Thebes. The city spreads along both banks of the Nile. East bank for the living, west bank for the dead. On the east bank, the temples of Karnak and Luxor rise like stone mountains. You're not going inside. That's not for people like you. But you know what's happening in there right now. The most important ritual of the day. The high priest is entering the mid-morning, daily work and construction inner sanctuary of Karnak, home of Amun-Ra, king of the gods. He bathed 3 times in the sacred lake before dawn, shaved his entire body, put on pure white linen. Now he's breaking the clay seal on the shrine that holds the god statue. He chants hymns, burns incense. The smoke rises in the dim light filtering through the high windows. Then he opens the shrine. Inside is a small statue of Amun-Ra, gold and lapis lazuli, maybe 2 feet tall. The priest washes it with sacred water, dresses it in fresh linen, anoints it with oils, puts on jewelry. Then he presents offerings, bread, beer, meat, vegetables, fruit piled high on altars. The god eats the spiritual essence of the food. Then the physical food gets divided among the priests as their payment. This happens every single day, dawn, noon, and evening. The gods need to be fed and cared for like living beings. If the rituals stop, Mayat collapses. Cosmic order fails. Egypt falls into chaos. The priests take this very, very seriously. Meanwhile, outside midday, bread, beer, and Egyptian food, in the temple courtyards, lesser priests are conducting other rituals. Scribes are recording offerings. Craftsmen are repairing damage to the walls. Karnak isn't just a temple. It's a city within the city. Workshops, granaries, storerooms, libraries. It owns massive amounts of land, controls thousands of workers, rivals the pharaoh himself in wealth and power. But you don't see any of this. The inner areas are forbidden. You pray at the outer court, make a small offering and leave. Mid-morning. By mid-morning, you're at your job. If you're a farmer, you're in the fields bent over with a sickle cutting wheat. If you're a craftsman, you're in a workshop, potter's wheels spinning, chisel hitting stone, loom clicking as you weave linen. But let's say you're something more interesting. Let's say you're a worker on a construction project, a new temple being built for Ramesses II. You're not a slave. That's important. You're a free man paid in rations, bread, beer, oil, sometimes afternoon, a day in the life of Pharaoh. Ramesses II meet. The work is hard. You're hauling stone blocks from the Nile to the construction site, dragging them on wooden sledges, pouring water on the sand to make them slide easier. Overseers are shouting. Other teams are competing to move more blocks than you. There's pride in this work. You're building something that will last forever, something the gods will live in. Your back hurts. Your hands are calloused. You've seen men crushed by falling stones, others with compressed spines from decades of hauling. But you're fed better than most Egyptians. You get medical care when you're injured, and when you die, you'll be buried properly with your name on a grave marker. Not everyone gets that. At the construction site, a scribe is recording everything. How many blocks moved, how many workers present, who's absent, and why. One ostrachan found at El Medina, the workers' village near the Valley of the Kings, lists excuses for missing work: brewing beer, bitten by a scorpion, embalming his brother, too drunk from yesterday. The Egyptians kept records of everything. Midday. By noon, work stops for the hottest part of the day. You head to the shade and eat. Bread. Always bread. Bread is Egypt. Wheat ground into flour, mixed with water, baked in clay ovens. You eat it with every meal, sometimes dipped in beer, sometimes with onions or garlic, sometimes with a bit of fish if you can afford it. Beer is the other staple, not evening, returning home in family life like modern beer. Thick, nutritious, slightly alcoholic. It's safer than water, everybody drinks it. Children, adults, workers, priests, pharaohs, brewers, often women, are highly respected. Beer is a gift from Osiris. It's sacred. If you're wealthy, you might have meat, beef, goat, duck, but most people eat meat maybe a few times a year at festivals. Vegetables are common: onions, garlic, cucumbers, lettuce, lentils. Fruit is a luxury: dates, figs, pomegranates. The rich eat differently. They have servants preparing elaborate meals. They import wine from the Mediterranean. They eat bread made from the finest flour. But you eat bread and beer and whatever. Night, stars, gods and the afterlife. Vegetables are in season. It's enough. Egypt is rich. The Nile provides. Afternoon. While you're eating lunch in the shade, Pharaoh Ramesses II is in his palace across the river. His day started before dawn with purification rituals, sacred baths, prayers. He performed the morning temple ritual himself, at least symbolically. In reality, the high priest did it in his name. Now he's in the audience hall. The walls are covered in painted reliefs showing him smiting enemies, receiving tribute, communing with gods. His vizier, the prime minister, presents the day's business, reports from the gold mines in Nubia, news from the frontier garrisons in Syria, updates on construction projects, a dispute between two nobles over land rights, tax collection numbers from Upper Egypt. The pharaoh makes decisions, final absolute decisions. He approves a military expedition. He closing legacy of ancient Egypt. Settles the land dispute. He orders more workers sent to his new temple. He is not just a king, he is a living god, the son of Ra, the embodiment of Horus. If he fails to maintain cosmic order, the sun won't rise, the Nile won't flood, Egypt will fall into chaos. It's an impossible job, the weight of the entire universe on his shoulders. But he gets to wear a gold cobra on his forehead, live in a palace, and have servants attending to his every need. Fair trade, maybe, maybe not. Later in the afternoon, he reviews his tomb construction in the Valley of the Kings. His eternal resting place is being carved into the rock right now, painted with spells from the Book of the Dead, filled with everything he'll need in the afterlife. Because death isn't the end, it's just a transition. If you're prepared properly, you'll live forever in the field of reeds, a perfect version of Egypt, where the harvest never fails and the beer never runs out. Evening, as the sun gets lower, work ends. You head home to your house in the village. Its small mud brick walls, a flat roof where you might sleep on hot nights. A few rooms, no windows, just small openings near the ceiling for ventilation. Inside, it's dim and cool. Your wife has been grinding grain all day, making bread, managing the household. Women in Egypt have surprising rights. They can own property, they can divorce, they inherit equally with their brothers. But they're still expected to stay home, raise children, run the household. Your children are playing in the street, boys and girls together. They'll help with chores soon enough. Education is rare. Unless you're training to be a scribe, you're learning by doing, watching your father farm or make pots or fish. Scribes are the elite. They don't do manual labor. They sit in the shade and write while everyone else sweats. There's even a text written by a scribe mocking other professions. The metal. Workers' fingers are like crocodile skin. He stinks worse than fish roe. The farmer cries louder than a guinea fowl. His voice is louder than a raven's. Scribes were not humble. But you're not a scribe. You're a worker, and you're proud of it. Dinner is simple. Bread, beer, some vegetables, maybe dried fish. You eat outside as the sun sets, watching the Nile turn from gold to red to purple. Night after dark, the village gets quiet. No street lights, no electricity, just the moon and stars. People don't travel at night. It's dangerous. Wild animals, bandits, demons. You stay home with your family. Maybe you tell stories about the gods, how Ra sails through the underworld every night fighting the serpent Apophis, how he emerges victorious each dawn. That's why the sun rises, because Ra wins. Maybe you pray to Bes, the dwarf god who protects households and children. Or Totret, the hippo goddess who helps women in childbirth. The great. Gods like Amun-Ra and Osiris are for temples and pharaohs. But the small gods, the household gods, those are for people like you. You have a small shrine in your home, a few clay figurines, some amulets. You pray for health, for a good harvest, for your children to survive. Child mortality is staggering. Maybe 1 in 3 children die before age 5. Disease, malnutrition, accidents. Life is hard, but you accept it. This is how the world works. If you live a good life, follow Matt, treat others fairly, you'll be judged worthy in the afterlife. Your heart will be weighed against the feather of truth. If it balances, you enter the field of reeds. If it doesn't, the demon Amit devours your soul. You cease to exist. So you try to live well, you try to do right, and you hope that's enough. So that was 24 hours in ancient Egypt. Not the gold masks and the pyramids, not the pharaohs and the curses. The real Egypt. Bread and beer, mud and the Nile. Gods, everywhere and everything, a civilization that lasted 3,000 years, longer than any empire before or since. They figured out how to live in a desert by understanding the Nile, how to feed 1 million people with bronze tools and human labor, how to build monuments so massive we're still not entirely sure how they did it. They invented hieroglyphics, papyrus, the 365-day calendar, advanced medicine, monumental architecture, but mostly they invented a way of life. They believed this world was good. So good that they wanted it to continue forever. The afterlife wasn't heaven, it was just Egypt. Perfect Egypt, eternal Egypt. That's what they worked for, what they built for, what they died for. And you can still see it today. The temples at Karak, the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, the Great Pyramid at Giza, still standing after 400-500 years. They built for eternity, and they succeeded. Thanks for watching Time Warp Cities. Creating these reconstructions takes enormous amounts of research and time, piecing together millennia of history into one day. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient Egypt, Hit subscribe for more immersive history and drop a comment. What ancient civilization should we visit next? As always, we'll see you in the